You've been fooled your whole life. Again, do you believe that owls can twist their heads 360 degrees? Or that houseflies only live for 24 hours? What about controlling snakes just by playing a flute? Or that cutting a worm in half makes it regenerate into two entirely new ones? If so, welcome to your planet and the show named Debunks 10 Common Animal Myths Around the World, Part 2. Now, let's investigate the following mysteries. Can owls rotate their heads 360 degrees? Imagine you're deep in a forest at midnight. You hear a soft hoot just above your head, and when you look up, you see a pair of glowing eyes on a head that seems to spin a full 360 degrees just to stare right at you. Whoa, talk about goosebumps, right? But what's even crazier is that folks still believe an owl's head can do a complete circle without so much as a crick in its neck. The truth is, while owls possess an extraordinary range of motion in their necks, they can only rotate their heads up to 270 degrees in either direction. This incredible flexibility is made possible by a unique skeletal and vascular structure. Unlike humans, who have 7 cervical vertebrae, owls can have up to 14 cervical vertebrae, allowing for a much greater range of motion. Furthermore, their blood vessels that supply the brain pass through special holes in their vertebrae, which are much larger than the arteries themselves. This design, along with expandable reservoirs in their neck arteries, ensures that blood flow to the brain isn't cut off during extreme head turns. In short, the belief that owls can rotate their heads 360 degrees is a misconception. Earthworm, cut in half and will revive into 2 new worms? You're out in the garden one day, deciding it's time to tackle those weeds. You dig the shovel into the soil and suddenly realize you've just cut an earthworm in half. For a split second, a wave of guilt washes over you, but then you remember the information. Earthworms will regenerate into 2 new worms if you cut them in half. You instantly feel relieved and continue gardening. But is that really how it works? While earthworms do possess remarkable regenerative capabilities, they aren't quite the biological marvels of division that this myth suggests. If an earthworm is cut, the front end, the part with the head and clitellum, the band around its body, has a much higher chance of regenerating a new tail. However, the tail end rarely, if ever, regenerates a new head. Even if the head end survives, the regeneration process is taxing, and the newly formed tail might not be as functional as the original. So, no, you won't get 2 worms for the price of 1. Instead, you'll likely have 1 struggling worm and 1 part that, unfortunately, won't make it. At this point, you might want to take a moment of silence for that poor, unfortunate worm from a minute ago. Snakes be controlled by music? When you were a kid, were you ever totally mesmerized by the image of a cobra swaying its body, dancing to the enchanting flute music of a charmer? You might have wondered, can this cold-blooded creature appreciate music so much that it's willing to dance at a human's command? Was it some kind of magic? Well, the scientific answer might just burst your bubble. Snakes, including cobras, are deaf to airborne sounds. They don't have external ears like humans do. And while they can feel vibrations through the ground or surfaces they're on, they cannot hear the music from a flute in the way we do. The snake is reacting to the movement of the charmer's instrument and body, not the sound. The charmer sways the flute, and the snake, perceiving this as a potential threat or prey, follows the movement to keep its eye on it, ready to strike if necessary. The rhythmic swaying is simply the snake's defensive or investigative posture. Basically, that whole dance is the snake getting ready to strike the charmer, not a sign it's appreciating his musical talent. Houseflies only live for 24 hours? Every time you finish cooking a delicious meal, you're stuck swatting those annoying flies with a fly swatter. However, your aim is quite poor, and you fail to kill any of them. So you tell yourself, whatever. They don't live more than 24 hours anyway. Is that smug little thought of ours true about the real lifespan of a fly? The reality is, under optimal conditions, a typical housefly can live for 15 to 30 days. Factors like temperature, humidity, and food availability play crucial roles in determining their exact longevity. While individual flies in adverse conditions might indeed perish quickly, a healthy fly in a comfortable environment can go about its business of annoying us for several weeks. During this time, a female housefly can lay hundreds of eggs, contributing to their rapid population growth, which might be another reason for the misconception of their fleeting existence. Don't underestimate those flies or their appetite just because you think their time is almost up. Elephants never forget. From the wild savannas to our modern cities, we often use the idiom, "an elephant never forgets," to praise the seemingly flawless memory of these massive creatures. You might even hear adults warn you not to mess with them because, they'll always hold a grudge. But is that the whole story? Let's take a look at the biological system of the elephants. They have a highly developed hippocampus and temporal lobes, brain regions crucial for memory, allowing them to remember water sources, migration routes, and even other individuals for decades. This phenomenal spatial and social memory is vital for their survival in complex environments, particularly during droughts, when they rely on remembering distant water holes. But like all memories, theirs is not perfect or infinite. They can forget details, and their recall is selective, focusing on information critical for survival and social cohesion. Putting it simply, their memory is a lot like ours. They remember some things, they forget others. It's not like they've got total recall. Mouse's favorite food is cheese? If I ask you what mice love to eat, a lot of people would instantly picture a delicious golden yellow slice of cheese. For decades, movies and cartoons have cemented this image of a mouse obsessed with cheese, even willing to battle a cat just to get its paws on some. However, the truth is quite the opposite. Mice are typically omnivores, but their natural diet leans heavily towards grains, fruits, seeds, and sweet foods. Their keen sense of smell, which is much more sensitive than a human's, actually finds the strong aroma of many cheeses to be quite overpowering and even off-putting. They are much more attracted to foods that are high in sugar or carbohydrates, like peanut butter, chocolate, or even cereals. Of course, if they're starving and food is scarce, a mouse will gnaw on some cheese. It's not this rodent's top pick. Bees die after stinging you? Tell me, who are the kamikaze pilots of the natural world? Are we talking about those dedicated bees, ready to sacrifice their lives to protect their queen and their hive? Well, that part's spot on. But the belief that all of them drop dead right after stinging an opponent? That's where we need to clear things up, because that's only a honeybee thing. When a honeybee stings a mammal, its barbed stinger becomes lodged in the skin. As the bee attempts to pull away, the stinger, venom sac, and part of its digestive tract are torn from its body, leading to its death. This is why honeybees are often seen as self-sacrificing defenders of their hive. The vast majority of other bee species, including bumblebees and solitary bees, as well as all species of wasps, have smooth stingers without barbs. This allows them to sting multiple times without harming themselves. So, unless you're born a honeybee, no other bee has to worry about dying just because it stung an opponent. Vultures circle waiting for their prey to die. Creatures on the brink often dread the moment death comes for them. And out in the wild, dying prey animals supposedly fear the sight of vultures circling overhead, just waiting for them to breathe their last before swooping down for a meal. Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But it turns out you've got these birds wrong. Vultures are primarily scavengers, meaning they feed on already deceased animals, known as carrion. Their incredible eyesight arguably among the best in the animal kingdom, allows them to spot carcasses from great heights. When a vulture spots a potential meal, it descends, and this descent signals other vultures in the vicinity. The circling behavior isn't about waiting for an animal to die. It's often a gathering signal, indicating that one of their kind has found a food source. They use air currents, or thermals, to gain altitude with minimal effort, allowing them to survey vast areas efficiently. Not to mention, vultures actually play a super important role in keeping the wilderness cleaner. We should give them more credit for all their hard work. Squirrels forget where they hide. The nuts? Unlike elephants, popular folklore often paints squirrels as total scatterbrains, constantly burying their delicious nuts in the ground, only to completely forget where they put them. It's like all that hard work searching and stashing just goes to waste. People even think that even if they try to find them, they just can't remember the burial spot. Sounds pretty plausible, right? Well, these little guys have been seriously underestimated. While they do bury thousands of nuts, and some are inevitably forgotten, it incidentally helps with seed dispersal and tree growth. Squirrels possess a surprisingly sophisticated spatial memory. They use various cues, including landmarks, spatial relationships, and even their keen sense of smell, to locate their buried treasures. Research has demonstrated that squirrels can remember the locations of thousands of individual caches, even months after burying them. Their seemingly random digging is often a strategy to throw off potential pilferers, or they might be checking on existing caches or creating new ones. It's the definition of tiny but mighty. Pigs are unclean animals? For anyone who's religious or has ever looked into different faiths, you're probably well aware that pigs are often listed as impure animals. And out in the real world, they frequently get a bad rap for being smelly, dumb, and just plain dirty creatures. I mean, just picture them covered in mud, food scraps, or, well, Despite all that, I'm here to tell you that pigs might be cleaner than you are. Pigs are, in fact, remarkably clean animals by nature. Their tendency to wallow in mud isn't a sign of dirtiness, but rather a clever way to regulate their body temperature. Pigs don't have sweat glands, so a mud bath acts like a natural sunscreen and a cooling system, helping them avoid overheating in hot weather. It also helps them get rid of parasites. Given the choice, pigs will go to great lengths to keep their sleeping and eating areas separate from their waste areas, demonstrating a strong preference for cleanliness. In environments where they have adequate space and appropriate facilities, pigs are quite fastidious, debunking the myth that they are inherently filthy creatures. We've journeyed through a whole bunch of those fascinating animal myths that, let's be honest, most of us probably believed at some point. From owls spinning their heads almost all the way around, to the idea that cutting a worm in half gives you two new ones, or even thinking mice are just dying for a piece of cheese. It's clear that what we think we know about the animal kingdom isn't always the full story. It shows how easily misconceptions can spread, often rooted in misinterpretations of animal behavior or plain old folklore. Understanding the true science behind these creatures not only debunks those myths, but also gives us a much deeper appreciation for the incredible and often surprising realities of the natural world. It turns out elephants have amazing memories, but they're not infallible. Bees mostly don't die after stinging, and those dancing snakes are just keeping an eye on the flutist, not enjoying a concert. Hopefully, this ride has given you a new perspective and maybe even made you chuckle a bit. If you enjoyed uncovering these wild truths with us, make sure to hit that subscribe button for your planet. And hey, got any other animal myths you want us to tackle? Drop them in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. See you soon.